Welcome, welcome. It's Sunday, January 4th, 2026. I'm just going to adjust here a little bit. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and I'm here Sunday mornings to go over the week ahead's transits and to do a tarot card, angel card spread for each sign. Technically, this video is based on whole sign Western, but personally, and if you're looking into your own chart, I really believe the Placidus house system is the best one to look at. I just did a chart for a client this week, and in whole sign, it really changed the chart. Her first house started in one sign and it went through three signs. And this is significant because the first house is the house of self and identity. So as I explain that, I'm also want to give the audience a chance to warm up and get into the room. These are really powerful times right now with the outer planets really setting the stage. We have Neptune at 29 degrees of Pisces. Neptune is spent between July 2024 and January 2026. It is spent almost 7 months at 29 degrees, either direct or in retrograde. This whole retrograde, Neptune did not move any deeper into its home sign. This is very significant, and I did a video, which I posted yesterday, about Neptune lingering at the 29th degree. This will shift, and Neptune will move into Aries on the world axis on January 26th, 2026. The world axis is a new beginning. It is literally the ignition of the Zodiac. The car is turned on and we start moving. And I find it so fascinating that the date itself reduces down to a 19, which reduces down to a 1. The 1 is the number of thought. The 1 is the number of the beginning of something. So this is significant. But let's talk about, I see a few people have crept into the room. Good morning, little grasshopper. I hope your side of the country is nice and toasty. It's starting to rain here again. We've had quite a bit of rain. And my Lulu girl, she doesn't like to go out in the rain, meaning she does not like to do her business. So we've been getting up early and trying to get our walks in before we go, or before the rain goes off. So anyway, I digress. Welcome everybody in the room. I see where people are starting to join. Okay. Good morning at my Kyoto. Welcome to the room. So good to see you here. Happy New Year. Okay, so again, little snow. Oh yeah. Okay, I'd be in toasty with some warm stuff on. Okay, let's talk about the stellium in Capricorn this week because it is potent. We've got the sun, we've got Mercury that has just kind of joined the party. We have Mars exalted, and we have Venus. Well, all you little snow people, stay cozy and warm and off the ice, because this is a time of being very mindful of your actions. Because this is what I want to say: this stellium in Capricorn, specifically Venus, Mars, and the Sun, they're the closest together. Capricorn is your 12th house. Okay, so you'll be revisiting some karmic ideas, choices, actions. Venus rules in Capricorn. Venus's focus is not necessarily on beauty per se, or she's focused on resources. She's focused on money. She's focused on flow and how that is going to be structured. Mars's exaltation in Capricorn is where Mars takes action from a strategic place. And then, of course, the sun in the middle is, your identity. So this is significant because they're going to be exact, all those three planets, at 17 degrees on the 7th and at 18 degrees on the 8th, all in opposition to Jupiter retrograde in Cancer. So I really think this is about, the Capricorn energy, looking at where there's been limitation, where there has been old history, structure, karmic choices, and Jupiter in opposition, but in exaltation. Again, we've got Mars in exaltation and we've got Jupiter in exaltation, and they're opposing one another. I kind of feel like in this particular instance, Mars has Venus and the Sun working together to help Jupiter shift a belief system or recognize a belief system, something that allows the whatever energy in your whatever house Jupiter is in for you, it's opening up space for you, okay, to think about more wealth, think about more expansion, moving beyond traditions that have inherently boxed you in. And Jupiter is making a square to Chiron. Chiron is now moved direct in Aries. Chiron will be shifting into Taurus this year. We have huge planetary changes in 2026. Good morning, Pixie. Good to see you. And all of this energy that we are experiencing right now is an awareness opportunity. It's not going to change the dynamics, but it will make the road more traversable with more ease. Where others will stumble or fall or feel thwarted, those standing in awareness have an opportunity to expand and to grow. And I say this because I really believe that as the outer planets are dictating how the landscape we're walking through, and as Pluto, the great, I want to say disruptor, but that's also Uranus. They both are disruptive, but in different ways, claiming themselves. And then we have them making aspects to Neptune that is offering us an opportunity to use our spiritual awarenesses. When I say spiritual, I don't necessarily mean religious. I mean the voice of my soul that says something that's contrary to human structure, and yet I know is more viable or more attainable when I go that way. So I think this is very, very important. And I think it's important to check out my video about Neptune. I'm going to do another one. I'm going to try to do a succession of these videos. And the next one's going to be Saturn joining Neptune here, because Saturn and Neptune actually work well together, because where Neptune's watery and blurry and, in some ways, can be self-defeating, Saturn takes no prisoners in demanding structure and endurance to get to the goal. So I think when instead of looking at these planets from just their erosive side to, thank you, DJ, good morning, I'm hoping everything's going well with you, and Pisces, and Saturn putting structure into music, poetry, thinking of your life in more a dreamy way. I believe that the outer planets of Pluto and Uranus are ushering us through their transits, knowing Uranus is going to move into Gemini. And we are going to understand that our true wealth comes from being aware of our minds and knowing when to surrender to the human structure that is the mind versus trying to fight it. Being aware when the fight comes from fear or when it comes from valor. So I think this is really important. That's about it for this week. I mean, things are pretty much, we're going to see that stellium move through Capricorn. It's going to go into Aquarius. It's going to go into Pisces. And it's not breaking up for a couple of months. It's going to stay pretty tight. So having the awareness of that is going to help us harness that energy. Okay. All right, let's go on to our readings. Happy birthday to all my Capricorns. Enjoy this stellium activity, because it truly, there's power, when you think about the idea of Mars taking action from a strategic place in harmony with the sun, which would be my ego, understanding that my ego doesn't have to be self-deprecating. Good morning at Vortex. Oh, happy birthday. Let's get on to the Capricorn, since you only have 20 minutes and Teri talks too much in class. This is a very pivotal time as your ruling planets Capricorn. And again, at the beginning of the video, I was talking about the Placidus house system. Thank you so much. But, for all intents and purposes, if you're looking at this in whole sign, we're looking at Capricorn rising as, and Saturn. So let's see your tarot card for this week, Capricorn. It is the Ace of Wands, but it's upside down. So I want to offer this because as your ruling planet is about to move into Aries next month, and it's coming up, onto Neptune. So this might be a time where inspirations require a lack of movement. It requires more time spent surrendering to a lack of inspiration potentially. Let's see where we're going. Because Ace of Wands is a lack of fire. It's a lack of creativity. When it's reversed, it's the new beginning isn't quite ready to start. And I do think, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but man, the AI commercials that have started to come out as we started this year felt so poignant to the stars. So be mindful of some of your movement forward may not be because you can't move forward. It's because structures are still, coming into play to facilitate that. All right. So we have the first angel is Fiona. This is actually when you have not been connecting with God and the angels. Jupiter ruled, Jupiter is retrograde and making an opposition to the stellium in Capricorn right now. So this really would be a potential of having to surrender so that you can be inspired and recognize where old habits are so ingrained, you don't even realize the belief isn't yours. Aurora is, that's interesting. And the opportunity, the obstacle is Aurora. We had Fiona upside down saying, I'm not connecting to God and the angels. I may feel actually, frustrated by that. Aurora is saying, you're flying high right now, but you don't know it. You might not know it yet. We have in the angels' advice, Shanti would indicate a lack of peace, a lack of tranquility. The goat is ready to go. The goat is, and with that stellium, there could be a couple of things going on because again, depending upon where it is in your chart, it could be stoking a lack of money, feeling like I can't move the story forward right now. Structures are thwarting me. But I think that also has something to do with starting to build a new house on an old platform, an old dynamic that is changing and growing and evolving. So, because I also want to say this, Aurora is the only card right now that's standing straight up. So she is saying that you're flying high right now, but don't descend because you may inspire others. Sometimes, Capricorn, the inspiration doesn't come from the hard work. It comes from the idea that the success that you want, you will not give up on that. And you allow yourself the journey of a knowingness of the pause and ebb and the flow. Let's see where we're going. Fiona's being joined by the king. Both are upside down. We have Aurora being joined by Merlin, who is upside down. We have Shanti being joined by the love card that is upside down. And then we have Ray, who's being joined by the risk card, which is also upside down. So I want to offer that this week. I think that there is actually a pause so that you have an opportunity to evaluate the platform with which you're going to take action on. I really want to open up the idea that I mentioned that Venus, Mars, and the Sun are going to be in an exact conjunction for 2 days. First at 17 degrees and then at 18 degrees. And interestingly enough, 17 degrees on the 7th and 18 degrees on the 8th. So I feel like this is compelling my Capricorns to connect with God and the angels and the laws of the universe, because this would be in the potential that you're a little bit more in your Capricorn-y energy. You're a little bit more in the, I've got to follow the rules, be responsible, hold myself, to the standard of which others require my leadership. Because Merlin is saying right now that there's a lack of balance, because the balance comes from understanding that everything that you create starts, first of all, in your belief system. What do I believe about this situation and the viability of it? Am I excited about it, or is it drudgery? Because what right now, if there's a lack of harmony, what you're endeavoring is not coming from something you love. It would be coming from that part of Capricorn that is looking to build material structure. That's like, I need to build this. I need to prove to everybody outside that I'm viable, because it's time. This risk and this connection to spirit that Ray infers is something you're not doing right now. Somewhere you've gone under the veil of, the more human side of Capricorn, the more challenging sides of Capricorn. And the way out is to actually recalibrate. Why am I doing this? What do I want to do? What do I really want to experience? I've been listening to this video about abundance, and I kind of laugh because sometimes in the verbiage that these people use, I can see the fear bubbles underneath. And in my mind, I course correct it. I never say an amount of money. I always talk about flow of money, feeling a sense of security within the flow. So I want to offer that, because that would be what I think is going on. And this week, having Mars exalted in your first house really is allowing you to be brave about owning what you are recalibrating, what you've been rebirthing. When Pluto moved through your first house, it really tore stuff up. It tore up your identity. And at the same time, it was bringing you into a platform of much more strength in your identity and an opportunity to make money at that, as that Pluto moves into your second house and then makes a sextile to Neptune and a trine to Uranus. Currency flows. All your needs are taken care of. It really is funny because, the manifestation is a really interesting vibration, because, it really starts off in fear. Most people, when they think about manifesting money, it doesn't come because they already have money. It comes from that they need money. And that's where the wobble comes in, because when we start to try to manifest, make vision boards or utilize affirmations or in anything on the internet, if we're not aligned to the flow or the ease of it, it's the law of attraction will not actually work, because your true attraction is what the law is responding to. All right, so let's go on to our Aquarius's rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. I haven't heard from Small Wildflowers. You guys, I don't think that this last week was great news. I don't know what the news was, but I did think that potentially she was feeling challenged with everything that's going on with her. So I've just let her be, because, sometimes, especially when you're fighting your own demons in your head, you don't want to even talk about anything. You just want to kind of, go into neutral. So prayers for her, please, everybody. All right. Have a beautiful birthday, Vortex. Enjoy the week. Okay, here we go. On to our Aquarius's rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. All right, the tarot card for you this week is the Page of Swords, and it's reversed. Now, this is an interesting energy because the Page of Swords can be a little bit stingy with his words when he's straight up. It can also be about the, starting to take action in some way. Now, this would almost feel as if Aquarius is going to have to potentially be more mindful of how they're communicating and where they're aiming, what they're aiming at. So sometimes, when we're frustrated in one situation, we can end up, yelling at the customer service person on the phone, or something like that. So let's see where we're going. I also want to say this because, with the Pluto being such a slow Pisces, no, we're on Aquarius. We go Capricorn, Aquarius, and then Pisces, right? We're on Aquarius. I just did Capricorn. Oh, oops. Well, that flipped right over. So we'll put the Chantal and Archangel Uriel both flipped over while I was Lucy, would you take that Pisces comment off because it's going to be confusing if anybody goes back to try to do timestamps. So we had Chantal, the angel of romance. And then we have Archangel Uriel, which, thank you, which would go really well with this Page of Swords. Then we have Shanti in the same position and removed. No worries, no worries. I know I talk a lot. And then Rochelle. All right, Rochelle and Shanti are both upside down. So my Aquarians, you know, when we think about that, stellium is in your 12th house. And it would be where you're unconsciously communicating because we have Mercury there. You have unconscious fears about your viability of your money, your confidence, your partnerships. You know, you could be having, and then if you have a stellium in Aquarius, you could be very anxious, you know, and be very overthink things. And when you overthink them, if you pay attention, you're not thinking of the good scenarios. You're only thinking of the bad ones, the ones that disrupt your peace, the ones that don't let you go where you want to go. Now, I also want to bring up the idea that Saturn is a co-ruler of Aquarius. And as Saturn creeps closer and closer to Neptune, old structures are going to kick up. And people who are unconscious are going to try to push those old structures back onto futuristic Aquarius. So let's see. Chantal is being joined by Merlin, and they're both straight up. That's nice. Archangel Uriel is being joined by the Swan, which is straight up. Shanti is being joined by the Spider, which is straight up. And Rochelle is being joined by the Truth card, which is upside down. So Chantal really talks about romance, but, you know, often, you know, in these times, not everybody's in a romantic situation. So I'm going to try to traverse both sides because I think that if we look at Chantal and we just go, what do you love? How do you find flow in your life? Are your thoughts taking aim at where you want the flow, whether it be in partnership, Venus and Capricorn in your 12th house, whether it be Mars taking action and being brave, even having sex. You know, Mars rules sex too, because Pluto and Mars rule sex. Hey, J-Dog, welcome here. Thank you for the comment on my video. That was really nice. Here is Chantal and Merlin saying to really, you know, there's the potential for seeking balance. And Aquarius sometimes doesn't feel balanced because it's that electric feeling, that the ruling the nervous system, that rah. The Merlin is a 1. There's an awareness of thought. There's an awareness, where is my mind going? That's emphasized also by the sword, Page of Swords upside down. Aquarius, be mindful of where you're taking aim at your thoughts, because the Swan is wanting to transform any frustration, anger, or resentment you may have. And, you know, when Aquarius, you know, there's a genius inside of Aquarius, even if it's not an educated genius, even if it's not a, you know, typical, ordinary, what we perceive as genius. There's innovation, there's looking in the future. And I think that sometimes that's where the anxiety comes from, because you know you're going to have to break down the past, or you're going to have to break down something that others or, you know, society rules as reasonable, deemable, good, and it's not for you, because somewhere you're feeling caught in a web of no peace. Okay, somewhere you're feeling like you want to stretch, and, you know, not having the ability to stretch can sometimes be annoying. Now let's think about it. Capricorn is your 12th house. That makes Cancer your 6th house. Something could be going on at work. Cancer 6th house is a nurturing energy. It is a healing energy, because, you know, now we look up and the truth is upside down and your heart is upside down. So somewhere Aquarius is going to go through, at least during this week, this awareness of unconscious fears, feeling responsible to something, feeling obsessed even sometimes. You know, that 12th house, we have that overlay of Pisces in there. So there's a lot of mental health awareness there. And you just could really be feeling like everything's going upside down. But when you start to recognize that divine disruptions are cleaning the nooks and crannies of your mind, so you can open the door to something more authentic. Because as an Aquarius rising, we've got Pisces as your 2nd house. So we're looking at Neptune and Saturn breaking up something that has to do with using your voice, your skills, what's important to you, and taking that into your third house of Aries, which is going to, liberate your mind and liberate the way you communicate and how you interact with your community. Your third house is your childhood too. So this could be a little bit of a challenging week in the respect of, you have an opportunity to transform anger, but you're going to have to set healthy boundaries in your relationships about where your peace comes from. Okay, let's go on to our Pisces, rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. I will say, for those of you that are watching, I do usually, Small Wildflowers will at least text me, and say that she isn't going to be on the show. And when she texted me last, she said that, Pisces for real this time. When she texted me last, it had been a long day and there was not good news at her doctor visit. And that's all I heard, and I didn't push on it. She said she'd reach out to me. So without hearing, I'm just thinking she's feeling really crappy and maybe even, a little challenged finding her fate. So, prayers for her, please. Anything you can do to send her good, loving energy would be awesome. All right, here we go. Pisces, rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. This is a really powerful time for the sense of self and what Saturn, I want to emphasize that Saturn, I've talked about this for the last 2 years, Saturn coming into Pisces was really asking for this anchoring of your soul's voice in your sense of self, right? And I use soul's voice because spirituality feels like it's a broad term, almost like happiness or love. There's many definitions to it. And so the soul's voice is the intention. It's the deeper, the true, the authentic part of you. So now we're looking at your ruling planet in that critical anaretic degree that brings on crisis in order to claim oneself, right? To claim your identity. And does Pisces claim its identity easily? No, but Saturn is giving you sustainability here. Saturn in these mastering degrees at the end, this pivotal 2 months, or these two planets. And by the way, Neptune will hover over the world axis at 0 degrees, 1 degree of Aries for all of 2026. So wherever Aries is in your chart is going to be a new beginning. It's going to be an ignition. It's going to be the car starts and it's ready to go. And as Saturn moves away, Saturn will move deeper into Aries. Saturn is going to be expecting whatever you've done in your Piscean energy to build structure, to take that into that Aries energy. So this is really a pivotal time. So let's go. Pisces, rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. Your tarot card this week is the Strength card, but it's reversed. Now this is interesting because you could be exhausted. One of the things about the 29th degree is it is an exhausting degree. It's where you're so pooped out and tired from the journey. And even though this is a journey through your own, ruling planet or ruling sign, it's also, I almost get this feeling of knowing that I'm going to go on a journey for the next 165 years before I get to come home again. And there's a bit of sadness. There's a bit of feeling a little melancholy. Now, as I was shuffling the tarot, I was getting a feeling, I was thinking of Pisces as the musician, the poet, the lyric. And then the Strength card is Leo upside down. So, this could also be, I'm tired of the journey, but I also am tired of having to, push my individuality. It may not be coming natural to you. Leo, individual. All right, we have the Death card upside down, which is transformation. That could be why you're exhausted. The Serpent is upside down. The Movement card is upside down. And then finally, the Dragon comes in upright. So there's definitely a transformation that's been happening. And that, again, your ruling planet at 29 degrees is going to be, where there's all sorts of ways to experience a little bit of a crisis, And when we're looking at Pisces at first house, we're looking at, do I believe in everything I've been fostering? Can I actually do it? Because the thing about Pisces and its challenging energy is it tends to, give itself up. It's almost like, here I'll be the supporting character. I'll be the backstage director, I don't mean the director of the production. I mean the one that's sitting in the second position. And you could be exhausted from trying to push to the front. And there's Teresa saying, upside down, you've been taking care of everybody else. It's time to take care of yourself. And this to me is I'm having trouble taking care of myself because the transformation of birthing this new version of myself is exhausting me. We see the serpent being joined by Mystique, but they're both upside down. Pisces, you don't need to push it right now. There is one of the greatest energies of Pisces is surrender. And in the surrender comes inspiration that then allows you to move more effortlessly into the next chapter, because movement and Bridget are both upside down. This Bridget is not about looking any deeper. The movement card is being thwarted because you must either be overcooked in your journey, but also if the Virgo energy, let's talk about the Virgo energy, which is where the South Node is, and this is the erosion of criticism, of self-criticism, of a lack of harmony, because my brain is going zzz, 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 zzz. And that's what I think. Don't look any deeper. Because if you try to look deeper or fine-tooth comb or try to transform anymore, why does this always happen to me? No, it's time to just look to the future. I want more flow and ease. I want more consistency. I want more la, 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 and then you fill in the blanks. Because the dragon is all about power and strength through a calm energy. And then Aurora is upside down. This would tell me, Pisces, that this week, there's a real need for you, to, if we think about Capricorn's your 11th house, your hopes and your dreams live there, not just your networks, not just the future. I mean, yes, the future, but your hopes and your dreams being connected somewhere to a creative endeavor. Creativity is not always art. Creativity can sometimes be opening up to a bigger idea of who you are as an individual. I'm bigger than this. Hey, this guy can win the lottery. Why not me? One of those questions. Because this week there's an exhaustion that seems to be permeating from your own continued transformation. And, I'm not surprised with Saturn's retrograde in your first house. And, in order to move the story forward, there's a surrender to knowledge, to healing, and healing is balance. So don't push yourself this week, but don't give up on yourself. All right, let's go on to our Aries, rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. My early born Aries, this could not be more powerful time for you on a soul level. Having these two planets together, is rare, to say the least. It doesn't happen for, 1,500 years, a little bit less than that. Yes, have we seen, Saturn in Aries? Yes, every 30 years, but not this combination, and not in conversation with Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in what will be Gemini. But it was now the end of Taurus. And some very significant things happened when Uranus moved into Gemini the last time. All right, here we go. Let's see what your tarot card is. We are on to Aries, rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. And you also, Aries, you've got a lot going on too, because not only do you have this hovering energy of Neptune and Saturn about to enter your first house, you also have Chiron, which is at the end of that first house. And this is like requiring you to start to master, as Chiron squares Jupiter retrograde in Cancer, What do you believe? How you were raised? Is it still your sad story, or is it the platform for your expansion? You know, one of the challenging things with Aries is that you can be right all day long, but you'll chew up your life and you'll burn it up because you're pissed off. And your actions will come from reaction to old stories that don't serve you. And this is the time to turn that crap into the manure that builds your life. Thank you, Outer Spice. I appreciate that. All right, here we go. Aries, your tarot card this week is the Tower, but it's inverted. Now, I think of the Tower as Uranus. There's no way in the world anybody's going to convince me that the Tower is Mars. I think Mars is the fool who pioneers without looking where he's going. Doesn't that make so much more sense? Now, with the Tower inverted, this is an opportunity for liberation, but without the scary, unexpected lightning bolt that can feel like it turns everything topsy-turvy. Let's see where we're going. It just really started to rain hard, and I'm wondering if I need to put a towel in the window because it leaks, and the landlord is just never going to fix it no matter what. He'd rather have the building rot. But we'll see if things start flooding. All right, Aries, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. We have Celeste, which is a happy shift in how you're thinking. We have Layla, which is about meditation and connecting with spirit. We have Astera, but she's reversed in the angel's advice. And then we have Isaiah reversed in the final position. I really think that as Saturn and Neptune are hovering in those last degrees of your 12th house, it isn't a time for action. It is a time for strategizing. It is a time for planning. It is a time for research and gathering the information that you need and being aware of how you yourself are taking on your endeavors. Are you doing it with excitement and joy, or are you doing it because you think you need something? Celeste is being joined by the Death card. This is very interesting. Layla is being joined by the Fire Fairy. Astera is upside down with the Joy card also upside down. And in the final position, we have Isaiah, the Birth and Rebirth card, being joined by Birth and Rebirth. So there's not going to be a rebirth just yet. Celeste being in this position with the Death card almost makes me feel, because Celeste talks about a home, a move to a new home or a new place of employment. I feel a little bit like this is really more about Jupiter being in the sign of Cancer and shifting how I view my childhood, my home, the traditions that I was brought up. And the Death card feels, it's a 46, which reduces down to a 10, which reduces down to a 1. So here I am seeing this correlation with ones once again, where Neptune's at 29 degrees, reduces down to an 11. Will I look at things through a spiritual lens, that this challenge, this divine disruption brought me here, gave me this awareness, brought me some wisdom, because it is through my connection to spirit that I will find my creative action and optimism in what I'm going through. Something is going to shift in the way I think internally. But it doesn't have to be jarring. It doesn't have to, blow things up. It doesn't have to have that really Uranian upset attached to it. Because I think that you've been upside down. And who can say you haven't been? When we think about what's been going on, Chiron transiting through Aries for years now, and I have to look up the transit period. But it's been quite some time where there's been a wound of self, a focus on, and whatever planets. If you are not an Aries rising, but if you have Venus in there, if you have, Mars, the ruler of the sign, anything that is in that house, and a lot of people have a Chiron there. People that are, I think, born around 75, 70, in early mid 70s. So here we're looking at this real wound of self, because I really think in the angel's advice that you're not looking at things from that you deserve the best. You're not looking at things from what do I want joy. Sometimes it's not fighting. That's what Aries doesn't know. Sometimes it's about walking away from the fight because it just is not worth it. It's not worth your happiness to go back and school somebody who's an asshole, even if they're an asshole. Because there is not a time. This rebirth feels like the reason Spirit's saying that it's not time is because you need to incorporate new ways of thinking, new ways, old battles coming into play, but strategizing them in a new way. And maybe that way is I don't have the physical bandwidth to deal with this anymore. So, Spirit, it's time for you to ensure that those people experience their own ramifications. It's almost like, sometimes we'll look at big structures and we'll think, oh, that rich person, they never pay a price. Or they never do anything, they've got what they need and I'm here holding the short stick. Aries can think that. And if you don't act on it, you'll find out something bigger is happening to that party, because if they've been purporting imbalance or been entitled or been stepping on the little guy, that's going to catch up to them too. That's what I'm trying to say. It's time to adopt the spiritual warrior, because Aries, that's where you're going. That is exactly, and wherever the Aries energy is in your chart, you're being asked to be a peaceful warrior, to be a strategic warrior, to be a warrior that's connected to your soul before you take action or react. So if things feel a little, no movement this week, it could very much be because the platform with which you would be taking action is not really viable. It's old story. Okay. The old story is you got to pound the pavement, give everyone a discount, and sometimes those things are fear-based actions. All right, on to Taurus, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Your card this week is the Four of Swords, but it's reversed. The Four of Swords is usually depicted as a knight who's come back from battle and is resting and communing with God. He almost looks like he's on a coffin, but I think he's more in a meditative debrief. Now we have this in the opposite energy. Let's see where we're going with this. All right, Taurus, our first angel is Azure, but she's reversed. The second is Archangel Uriel. This is about frustration and anger. Ariel is reversed. And then we have Yvonne. The Four of Swords is also a feeling of protection that the knight has so this would all be feeling not protected in some way, not feeling like things were lining up. This so far indicates frustration for Taurus, but that's also because Taurus is, they want to see it in the material, and oftentimes, especially now, we're moving into the material shows up when we start to believe it, we start to align to it. So the Raven is joining Azure, which is interesting because the Raven is about magic and synchronistic events. So the reason your desired outcome isn't happening is because events have not come into play. The chess pieces need to move. Ariel is about frustration, and this is joined by the trust card upside down, which is a 47, which reduces down to an 11. The Raven is a 10, which obviously reduces down to a 1. Taurus, this is about aligning yourself. This is, The Taurus is the sign of insecurity because it needs its resources to feel safe. It needs its things and belongings. And this is a time where you get to open up into the space that my thoughts and my emotional body being the seedling for my thoughts, and my thoughts being the, the nutrients that grow my experiences. Because the reason things aren't moving is because you don't trust. You're too busy focused on the clock, on what's happening. You're not connected to spirit. That's indicated by this upside down Ariel. Whoops. Oh, and this card wanted to come. I think it's this one. And there's the cat, which is very interesting because it's about independence and healthy boundaries. But here, I think it's 9 lives. I think it's about, every ending. And that's what we see very much in the Saturn Neptune at 29. Something is culminating. Something is coming to a crisis point. Something needs to be completed, released, integrated into wisdom. And if indeed Taurus is always worried about money or resources or feels stuck in that energy, we've got Pluto making a square to early Taurus energy, making a square, Pluto making a square from its place in Aquarius, because Yvonne is about vulnerability, and vulnerability is not about exposing yourself. It's about trusting the unseen. And then we have the ego, which comes into play, which is spirit. Okay. So you are not feeling restful this week. Your Capricorn energy, which I believe is your, this is where I get messed up. It's your 8th house. Wait, no, your 9th house. You could be very concerned about that. The 9th house is also a house of wealth and a house of expansion. Right now, being aware that you feel a little unsettled, that's when I would actually kick in and say, all right, spirit, apparently I have to wait for some synchronistic events to come into play. Someone's got a call, someone's got a book, someone blah, blah, blah. And rather than being frustrated, help me to anchor into my trust. Help me to trust that there is a new beginning. We are really in sort of this place, all of us, where as spiritually based as we may be, as much as we may understand about the universe, it feels like it's being tested right now by human structures that want to contain us or to stoke our fears. And I think there's so many, I scroll Yahoo and so many young people are crossing over. And we're all so vulnerable, our bodies apparently right now. It's a time of really having to look at that energy and say, am I going to claim that as my truth, or do I know something different? And it can be unnerving. Welcome, Red Pill. I wonder if that's Red Pill Art. That's how that kind of comes across to me. Welcome, Canada. So good to see you in the room. All right, we're going on to our Geminis. Rising moon, sun, and stelliums. And this would make Uranus of going through your 12th house of the unconscious, the self-undoing, what I can't let go of, and breaking that stuff up. The rain is coming down full force right now. Oh, good. I said it right. I love that. All right, Gemini, here we go. Should have put a towel in the window before I started. Oh, was that fun? Is it arrived, or did you just get it on Amazon? Oh, that's fun. I didn't know it included astrology aspects. There's a lot of interesting ones this year. I mean, with Uranus moving into Gemini, the nodes will change signs. Jupiter will change signs. Saturn and Neptune will change signs. Oh, it's huge. You guys, excuse me. I got to look and see if this window is leaking. Hold on a second. Not yet. Okay, good. Not yet. We're safe. Okay. Now I can concentrate. All right. You bought it at the supermarket. Oh, wow. I bet it was in the magazines, huh? Okay. Gemini, your card for the week is the High Priestess, but she's upside down. Now, this is very interesting because, thank goodness, we've got some ways to go with those nodes. They're hovering right now. The South node is on my Venus, and it's going to go on my Pluto. So that's very interesting. I thought so. So Gemini, with the High Priestess upside down, this would very much indicate that you are not you're in your head. Mercury is in Capricorn right now, and that makes Mercury thinking Capricornian, thinking about structure, thinking about what I fear, potentially being vulnerable to feeling depressed or feeling limited or restricted in some way. When Venus is in Capricorn, she's really security minded. She's really structurally based. She's not the sexiest there. And then we have the sun, obviously, in Capricorn, and we have Mars. So you could very well be all over the place, not only with your natural Gemini contemplative, let me look at, both sides of a situation, but this would say that you're not connected to your emotions, you're not connected to the high priestess within all of you, or the high priest within you, depending upon, how you view yourself. All right, let's see where we're going. The new season of Traders starts this week. I can't wait. I'm so excited. I love that reality show on Peacock. Oh, my favorite. All right, sorry, I just digressed. There's a lot of new shows starting this week. All right, Gemini. Bridget is saying to look deeper into a situation. Bridget is asking you about your vulnerability. Xana is saying that you're protected. And then Caressa is saying that you are not at the end of a life cycle. Not yet. So this is very interesting because with the high priestess upside down, you're missing a big piece of information, which is what Bridget is saying. And you may be afraid to even look at it from a vulnerable place. I haven't seen Traders Canada. Does Bravo make that one? Because it should be on I would watch it. I've seen Traders Australia, New Zealand, the UK, obviously. I would watch every episode. I just love it. I don't care if I know the people or not. Isn't it fascinating to watch the psychology of people and what they will do? Okay, here we go. Whoop. I don't like the US as much as I like the other ones because I like the ones that use real people. I'm kind of tired of all the same reality show people being on all these things, but there's new people in this one, or people I'm not familiar with. So, all right, Gemini, I digress. Bridget is being joined by the birth and the rebirth card. Absolutely. This is all about, are you starting to build your house on what it is you truly want? That high priestess is almost demanding that you stop and look at what is the platform of where you're coming from. Because Yvonne is being joined by the wasp, but the wasp is upside down. So this would indicate somewhere you're very vulnerable to an outcome that doesn't feel good, that would somehow bite you. Now the Xana is here being joined by the dog in the angel's advice. This is very favorable. And the dog is a 19, which reduces down to a 10, which reduces down to a 1, which is you're protected not only by spirit, by your awareness of your thoughts. Gemini rules thoughts, but it doesn't rule thoughts the way it would in Virgo. Okay, Mercury here is more about gathering information, but it's short bits of information. You may have to gather more information about something, or look, as Bridget says, deeper into the facts. There is this idea that you can Google something and find out, the truth of it. It was on Chat GPT when I started to talk about transits and things, and I watched it make so many mistakes about things. I started to understand I had to be discerning with the information that's coming through. Something about Gemini this week is saying to me, you're missing intuitive messages or defaulting into your brain hemispheres, and spirit saying, whoa, back the bus up and stop contemplating what can sting you versus where it can actually work for you, because something is not ending. And this is interesting because the deer is with this. So we see Caressa that normally talks about the end of a life cycle. So this is the opposite when it's upside down. And the deer is about being paralyzed. And this would indicate that you're not truly paralyzed. So somewhere you are worried about something that is not necessarily going to happen, or isn't going to work out as negatively as you expect it to or fear it might. And so you could easily put yourself in a situation of driving yourself a little mad. And I want to offer this because I think Mercury ruled people, when they get anxious, this is also good for Aquarians. Do something with your hands. Gemini rules two things, right? Your ears, your hands. Art, play cards or do a puzzle, something where you can focus your mind on something will help calm down if you're feeling anxious. And then you might be able to hear spirit coming through more succinctly. I think that's also what happens when the mind starts to go off. It's harder and harder to feel connected to spirit or to your own inner truth. And I want to say this because practice doesn't make perfect, but it certainly makes things easier. When you practice, is this my truth? Is this fear real? Is this just, something I'm used to being afraid of? I've been trained to be afraid of. Then you might come up with a different answer. Okay. Here we on to our Cancers, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Okay, the Three of Swords is upside down. There's a healing happening somewhere where you have felt heartbroken, you have felt a sense of betrayal, a sense of being unseen in some way. This is now an opportunity for those feelings to be reconciled, to be integrated into wisdom. Let's see where we're going. If we think about the stellium is in your 7th house right now, in whole sign. Of course, I do really recommend looking in Placidus, but this means that Venus, Mercury, Mars, and the sun are all in your 7th house. And this could be very illuminating on some level about how you experience peace, harmony, and situations in general. Because when you give and give and give and you don't give to yourself, you're setting yourself up for a personal betrayal, a betrayal of self. And when you put your happiness on somebody else's head, it's real sketchy. So this would indicate that you're starting to move away from that energy. We have Archangel Michael giving you not only protection, but the courage to make life changes that are so important for your happiness. You're being protected doubly with Xana here, saying that the worst is behind you if you would look forward. Bridget is saying look deeper into a situation. And sometimes we cling on to situations that feel safe, but they didn't actually make us happy, at least not to a large enough percentage, an exchange of energy. And in the final angel is Chantal, the angel of romance, offering new romance. On some level, while this feels as if, the Three of Swords is often associated with cheating in relationships, but with the Three of Swords upside down, there's a healing being offered. A betrayal is lifting, a heartache is lifting, but we have to have the courage on some level to, and I say this lovingly, look at our participation within the situation. I don't mean it that what do you mean? I didn't cheat on my partner. But if you're involved in a relationship where there's cheating or there's betrayal of some kind, it could be a professional partnership, it could be a friendship even. Where did you, Cancer, not take care of yourself in the situation? Where did you overly love somebody, or where did you, step aside from the self? And that would be not a crime, but it would be your participation. We're all energetically co-creating, even the dark stuff or what feels like dark stuff. So when we're co-creating a challenge, we're co-creating an opportunity. So Archangel Michael's asking you to have the courage to look for that opportunity. And then there's the letting go card. That's really wild. Xana is being saying that you're protected from restriction And sometimes restriction isn't literally like holding you down, but being on the same hamster wheel. It's truly difficult to I can't help in this moment but thinking of Cesar Millan, and he rehabilitates dogs, but then he gives them back to the people who have their energy. And without the knowledge and them participating in their awareness of the energy they're feeding the dog and how they're co-creating that, Caesar's work is not sustainable, because that's what I think is going on here. There's something that's being offered to you that could be more viable to your happiness, but you could potentially be hanging on to something because of an old hurt, because of an old situation, but something that gets to go to its final phase of healing. The High Priestess is joining Bridget. Really, this is about looking deeper. This would be saying that you're not looking into your soul's needs here. Your discernment is off, And that's when we want to stay in a situation because, well, I've always been there. That's where I should be. But was it a good situation? Because Chantal is offering a new beginning. And it's a new beginning that comes from a disruption. I'm going to say something that feels like a betrayal, but I don't think it is. I loved Lucky very much, beyond all measure. I quit my job so I could be home with that dog, okay? He passed away and I mourned him, crying from the deepest part of my guts. Then Lulu shows up 2 weeks later. I am not expecting her. I am not even truly looking for her, but I know that I need to feel that connection. And now that she's here, we are so much, she's such a more aligned dog to my emotional needs that I have guilt and feel like I betrayed Lucky because I'm not sad anymore that he passed. There's a part of me that's actually happy that he passed and I have this opportunity and Lulu has this opportunity. I even started calling her Luna. She responds to it, which I thought was fun because, I've worked with the stars. It's not far off the name she was given. But in any case, this is kind of what I'm talking about for Cancer. There could be something that's more aligned to a deeper part of your happiness. And Jupiter going through your first house in retrograde and opposing your seventh house might be bringing up some stuff that is saying, are you holding on to something because you know it and it's familiar? Or are you holding on to it because it actually makes you expand? All right, on to our Leos, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Oh, there we go. It just threw itself right out. The Eight of Swords is straight up. Now, this is a little bit of a challenging energy. It's traditionally where you see a female character bound, and yet she could wiggle out of the blindfold. She could wiggle out of what is binding her, but she's in a wall of swords, and she feels she's a part of that wall. And usually it indicates there's too much going on. There's too many opportunities, and they're not being looked at for their imbalance. They're being looked at for more fear. So I'd rather stay, again, sort of in my stuff. Now, in this deck, the woman is looking at herself. And we see that the swords that are in the carrier on her back are lighting up. Look at her. The pink shirt is no mistake. It's through love. It's through, understanding that sometimes when we're bound is when we actually claim ourselves most. So let's see where we're going for our Leos. Rising moon, sun, and stelliums. You have an opposition to Pluto, early born Leo, or early degree Leo. Anything you have in early degree Leo is being opposed by Pluto, wanting to bring up what is not working anymore. And in this particular case, it's a deep psychology. It's something inside of you, a belief. It's something that you have. If we think about Cancer's your 12th house, we've got Jupiter going through your 12th house, rewriting your beliefs. Jupiter is also the co-ruler of the 12th house. So it does have a certain amount of familiarity there. And now Jupiter is exalted in your 12th house. So it's giving you an ability to be a little bit more authentic with, am I being courageous in my heart? Am I really standing on the platform of my own life, meaning the stage of my own life? Or am I inadvertently letting old beliefs or somehow undo what it is that I want? Like, if I can't be the biggest, I don't want to do it at all. That could be a belief that thwarts you, that you don't even know you carry. Bridget is asking you to look deeper. There we go. Maya is talking about schooling and education. Caressa is talking about the end of a life cycle, that something new awaits you. And so does Isaiah, talking about protection during new beginnings. So as you become aware of, not judgy, okay? It's not about judging yourself. It is because we've got Virgo as your second house of self-worth, and the South Node is there. So this would be somewhere where you recognize something about yourself that up until now has thwarted you, has kept you from being everything you want to be or experienced everything you want to experience. And rather than villainizing yourself or ruminating over that, you start to look deeper into what does make you happy and what new beginning you do want and how that feels. That's always the first place to start. It's not trying to pick out the location. I was, watching my reality shows, and I never watch these 90-day fiance things. They're not my shows, but they do the commercials. And one woman says, you think you moved to a new country and you don't have any more problems. No, your problems come with you. That's the truth of life. Okay, you go wherever you are. So this is what this is about. What am I doing that is in some way holding me back from my greatness or my happiness or my pleasure or my joy? Because when Jupiter moves into your first house, game on, literally. All right. Hey, girly. All right, Merlin is looking at magic here, okay? Look deeper into the magic that you want to create. And how are you being balanced? Are you operating within the framework of your own dreams? We have Maya, and she's being joined by the butterfly, but the butterfly is upside down. So there's something to learn about the cocoon phase, about what there is that, the butterfly is really a process that is horrific, okay? The caterpillar eats itself, gorges itself to being like Jabba the Hutt. Then it starts to emit an enzyme that literally eats itself. And then it disintegrates as it goes into this cocoon and then starts to become the butterfly. Because here somewhere, there's time for a new beginning and a releasing of baggage. And what unfortunately Leos don't do is they don't let go of things very easily. The fixed signs don't let go of things very easily. And because you represent the heart and courage and romance, you're vulnerable to other people's opinions. You're vulnerable to identifying your sense of self with how the audience responds. And I think that this is where the new beginning comes from, because I keep hearing in my head, that was then and this is now. That was then and this is now. All right, and in the final position, we have Isaiah, and then the protection card is reversed. Now, this is interesting to me because Merlin is a 1, so here we're getting the theme of thought, and then the protection card is a 38 that reduces down to an 11. So it's not that you're not protected, but it's really an opportunity here to look deeper into your thought process and how much, whether you're justified or not, that's fine. But is that justification holding you back? Is being right keeping you from your happiness, keeping you from moving the story forward? Because the 8 of Swords is never about anybody else. It's about you. It's about your issues and the things that you feel tethered to that you could integrate. And that's through schooling and education, because your blossoming and your beauty is upside down. And it isn't, the new beginning is predicated on the integration of your emotional baggage and leaping from one lily pad to another. Did I lose you, Lucy? Because I'm going on to Virgo now, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. I don't know. The room is kind of quiet now. There we go. Thanks, J-Dog. Appreciate that. All right, Virgo. That South Node. I'll tell you. It's okay. It's okay. I hope I didn't get lost. We found Lucy. She's back. All right, here we go, Virgo. I really want to say this to my Virgos because I think that having the South Node going through your first house could be very hard on you because you're so, on some level you're very married to what you produce, your service to others and how you go about that. And this is a little bit of the difference between Gemini and Virgo. Virgo is meticulous. Gemini can kind of, see things and then scoot on to something else because it's got every short piece of information it needs. Whereas Virgo wants to put the pieces together and gather data, whatever you want to say. And so it brings me to the South Node going through your first house as you gather data about who and what you have been up until now, and you're nitpicking yourself. The South Node is saying, stop it. Stop being super critical. Stop being a perfectionist. Maybe you're overanalyzing yourself and a situation, and it's time to release that and to head towards the harmony of and the poetic nature of your seventh house. Forget partnership right now, okay? Just think about the idea that the seventh house rules balance, cooperation. All right. Virgo, your tarot card this week is the Empress, and she's straight up. This is a beautiful card. It's a card of gestation. It's a card where we're going through a period of growth where something is about to be birthed. And we see here that she understands the nature of the process, and she's not pushing on it. She's not trying to make the baby grow faster. The baby's going to grow at the baby's pace. So she's aligned to that. Let's see where we're going. I also think that this is Venusian, right? And so with Virgo, you've got, Capricorn is your fifth house. And yeah. And that would be that something could be growing. There's a stellium right now of Venus, Mars, and Mercury and Jupiter. I'm sorry, not Jupiter. Silly me. Mars, Venus, the Sun, and Mercury are all in your fifth house. Something could definitely get stoked up with when it comes to romance, or some sort of awareness when it comes to romance of what you want to grow about it. Let's see. Need a little sip of my juice. Those inner planets are really zipping around. It's the outer planets right now that are making the biggest noise. And they're setting the stage for those inner planets to shift in a big way. I can't even imagine what life will look like for me as being as old as I am. I feel like I'm like akin to living in the beginning of the 20th century and watching all the changes that took place. Okay. Virgo, our first angel is Layla, which is about spending time in nature, meditating, getting connected with the truth of yourself. Isabella is saying the timing's not right. It's not time to move. We're still gestating because she's upside down. We're still growing something. Maya is about schooling and education and the angel's advice. And then we have Akasha, which is the spiritual teacher. All right. And I'm not saying Virgo is a teacher, although they could be, but I think more that spirit might be teaching you something. It is something else, isn't it? And imagine another 45 years, how the world will be. Pluto will have moved into Pisces. I can't even imagine. I don't know if I could be alive when that happens. That's reasonable, but you will probably most definitely be alive. That would be so wild. And by that time, Neptune will have moved into probably Gemini. Oh my God, you'll see so many changes in the world. And Uranus will be, I can't even think where that will be because it moves faster. It is a little bit to think about, isn't it? Okay. Virgo, Layla is being joined by the focus card. Okay. That's focus card's upside down. Isabella, who is upside down, is being joined by the wrist card. Maya is being joined by the birth and the rebirth card. They're both straight up. And Akasha is being joined by the king. Okay, so for my Virgos this week, you're definitely in a period of contemplation, of growth, of and it's out of your hands. The process is a natural one that you can't make move any faster. So here now, I feel like there's a lack of focus on your connection to a bigger picture of things, because Layla doesn't just represent connecting with God and the angels, but connecting with intention, with a certain perspective. This is what I want to grow. And here, this would be a lack of focus, because if you're in too much process about how to get there, then you're not connecting to spirit, because the timing is not necessarily right, as Isabella indicates, because you have to risk letting something pause and grow on its own, letting nature do its course. Because the schooling and education card comes from the birth and the rebirth card. So if indeed you're, let's say, because Venus rules food, and if indeed you're doing a cleanse, right, and you're doing something to support your body right now, we're just using this as an example, then allowing the process, which will not be like immediate results, it will be something that is more Saturnian, something that is sustainable, because Akasha, the teacher, and the king here makes me feel like Virgo is learning about the universal laws. Virgo will use the mind to process through the human structure of what it has experienced, learned, been taught, and then apply it. But that's all changing because of the outer planets. So now the process is trusting that connection and the intention that you're putting into the universe. And you're not going to it's not a light switch. It's more of a dimmer switch. And so you've got to go through the process of turning the switch brighter and brighter. And sometimes Virgos worry about, will I get there? It will thwart that. So this is a surrender this week to a process and watching where your focus is. Is it on the outcome you want to experience, or on the worry of not getting the outcome you want to experience? All right, onward and upward to our Libras, and then our Scorpios, and then our Saggies, and we're peace out for the day. And look for for that video on Pisces. I also plan on doing a video. I'm going to try. I hate to make promises I can't keep, because I feel like I did a lot of that in 2024, and then 2025 came and I hit the wall hard. But I have done a lot of research, and I've been doing a lot of research. So I've got plans for a video to record tomorrow about Saturn coming up on the 29th degree of Pisces. All right, here we go. It is a dimmer switch. All right, Libra, let's see your card for the week. Whoops. The Emperor. This is really about individuality. And if you look at this guy, he is sitting on that throne. He owns it. Nobody's moving him. He has a very taking no prisoners feel. Very un-Libra-like. Also the opposite, because this Emperor is ruled by the sign of Aries, Mars. And we just saw in the previous sign, we saw the Empress. That's interesting. And we have 11 people in the room and 11 likes. Synchronicity. All right. What does the Emperor want our Libras to know? Chantal, the angel of romance. Isabella says, yes, the timing is right. Yvonne is about being vulnerable, and Shanti's about peace. Oh, thank you, guys. I appreciate that. Pay attention to those 1111s because they're telling you your thoughts are manifesting very quickly. Are they aligned to what you want to experience, or are they aligned to something you don't want to experience? Because when Neptune moves into Aries on the world axis, the ignition of a new story of self, it happens on a one day, a day that is represented by the number 1. I think that's crazy. Chantal is being joined by the eagle. Okay, Libra. Merlin is joining Isabella. Yvonne is being joined by the raven. And Shanti is being joined by the Lady of the Lake. The Emperor is absolutely referring to Libra as an individual, as like standing for what you believe in a harmonious way, okay? Because here is Chantal, the angel of love and romance, and then there's the eagle. And I don't necessarily think that this is about intimate love. I'm sure potentially there could be some people, some Libras that this week, have something is going on with the relationship. But I think that the Emperor to me is representing the bravery of Mars, the new beginning, the adventure out. And now this Chantal and the eagle feels as if I really want to connect with spirit, with what I love, what I am transmitting out into the universe. Because here is Merlin representing balance and alchemy and justice, and Isabella saying the time is right for justice. And, Libra represents balance. And I think that's one of the things that Libra has been walking through when the nodes were going through your sign, was really, letting the South Node, erode wherever there wasn't balance in your interactions with others. Because Yvonne and the raven are literally, the raven is a 10, okay? Merlin is a 1. So here we're seeing this number 1 again, but this is about being vulnerable to, there's more to life, there's more to what you want, there's more to what you love. But part of that is Libra adventuring out on some individual way, in something that doesn't require you having to be with someone else. And it doesn't mean that you can't actually go with someone else to venture out, but it means that this is your journey and your awareness of that and your tenacity for it. Because the Lady of the Lake is some sort of fight between my head and my emotions, and the truth lies in the middle. And then Shanti's offering peace and harmony. So let's say that you're, a woman of a certain age, 66 years old, feeling like, okay, nobody notices me anymore. I'm not the cute girl that people want to help. I'm the old lady that's taken up somebody's time. And that can put you in a place of feeling super invisible in the world. And then do you keep going with that, Libra? Or do you think, you know what, for every old girl out there, there could be an old guy that likes old girls. They don't all have to want young girls. And the way that we identify certain things, Libra is a Venus ruled planet, or a ruled sign. So Venus is really, she doesn't have any moons of her own. So she's really wanting to feel, that connection, that sense of value. And she can't help but thinking it through others. And here we're doing the opposite. We're looking at Mars energy in the form of the Emperor. We're looking at Venus and Mars flanking the sun in Capricorn right now. Mercury's there, but Mercury's a little bit out of orb, in the house, but not in orb. So this week, I think that you're going to come to some sort of conclusion about what makes you feel loved, valued, appreciated. I think you're going to want to connect with spirit and say, I'd like to experience that more than it's conceptual. I'd like to feel it. I'm ready to venture out in there. And thank you for bringing me into a sense of peace about this adventure. Again, a dimmer switch where we're coming into an energy. We're not charging into it. I still think that there's strange alignments that are coming up, that I think there are people that will come into partnerships with others who, while you may be on a journey of awareness, they may be newer on the journey, but adapt more easily. I don't know. There's something here that says that when you sit in your truth, there's peace that comes to you, Libra. All right. And it's an individual truth. It's not attached to somebody else or something. Okay, let's go on to our Scorpios, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. All right, here we go. Scorpio rising, most intuitive sign of the zodiac, charged with so much power and responsibility, honestly. When your soul chooses some Scorpion energy, you're really digging in deep. I mean, literally. You're going into the murk and the muck and you're saying, I'm transforming this crap and I'm a phoenix. And depending upon the degree of your rising sign, will really indicate the density of that experience. All right, here we go. Scorpio. The Four of Pentacles. Now, this is a card of feeling stuck. And now this feels unstuck. Let's see where we're going. Yeah, no, you don't. Yes, Scorpios are intense. There's no doubt about it. But I also think that that intensity has great power for liberation, for not only liberating themselves and rebirthing themselves, but those around them. The challenge is that it's a stuck energy, right? It's stuck between Libra's, oh, make everything nice, and Sagittarius is like, oh, look at the bigger picture, and kind of like Sagittarius would be like, well, if you don't like it, just move on. And Scorpio's like, no, I'm not moving on until this is cleaned up. So it's a little bit of a challenge. Let's see where we're getting unstuck, Scorpio. For some reason, I heard this is like clarity. There's some clarity coming up. It's not about literally like unsticking, a cork in a bottle, but more like I'm not banging my head against the wall anymore. All right, here we go. Akasha is the spiritual teacher. There we go. Opal is the upside down. Now, Opal's normally a connection to God and the angels and feeling protected, but this is upside down. We have Bethany, which is also upside down, lack of self-care. And in the final position, Yvonne, which is about vulnerability. All right. When you are ruled by a sign which, rules crisis and trauma, and how that changes you, you're not the same. You experience the death of something you love, someone you love, you're never the same again. Or when you experience a lack of your power, you feel powerless over somebody or something, your life, because this is a vulnerability to what's being taught to you or what is being presented for you to learn. Akasha is being joined by the stag, which is about pride and leadership. Opal is being joined by the communication card, but the communication card is upside down, as is Opal. Bethany is being joined by the eagle. Bethany is upside down, but the eagle is straightforward. And Yvonne is here, and the novice is upside down. This would indicate that Spirit is giving our Scorpios. Now, those Scorpios who are early born are experiencing the square from Pluto, your ruling planet. Literally breaking something up. And this looks as if, and I'm going to say this lovingly, if you are in some way feel a sense of pride about something, like I can't move on until I get closure, I can't move on until I blah, 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 Spirit is saying you can unstick yourself by literally applying what you are learning and taking it to an elevated place, taking it to a place where you become the teacher of self. Because in this, Akasha is the spiritual teacher, and then there's the stag. And I feel like the stag is representing a duality of Scorpio. Like I can be a leader or I could be stuck in my pride. And this is indicating it's time not to be stuck in your pride anymore. Because the communication card and Opal represents being a child of God, and everybody is a child of God. Everybody is a child of the universe, even the dark people, okay? And I mean that the dark side, evil people, people who do nasty things to other people. What is represented, the criminal behavior that's represented in your sign. Because here, to me, even though you might be justified in how you're feeling about something and someone or a situation, and they could be the bad hombre, you're now hurting yourself, or spirit saying it's not getting you anywhere. Because here's the taking care of self is upside down, and the eagle is asking you literally to step up, to look at a situation. I've had some situations going on. I have a Scorpionic 7th house with my Mercury there, and I've had some people do some bad things to me, and I've had no justice. And I'm literally been walking through a period of time like, do I continue to try to get justice? Do I seek another avenue of justice? Or am I now just beating my head against the wall and thwarting my happiness because I don't want, I'm a Mars ruled person. Because somewhere you honestly, Scorpio, get to be vulnerable because you're blocking a new beginning. You're blocking new skills, you're blocking something. And it's interesting because this now feels like spirit is coaching you to be unstuck. I want to offer this, J-Dog, because shadow work is really, for me, the extraction of wisdom, right? What about this dark situation compelled me? What did I learn from it? Where did I move? I always talk about, when I was 21 years old, I experienced the biggest betrayal that pretty much anybody can experience, in the form of sibling rivalry. And it changed me. It changed me forever. And it was the beginning of me really recognizing wisdom through darkness. I didn't know it at the time. I was 21 years old, and it was a long mourning process. It was a long balancing, healing process. But at the end of the day, I got what I needed out of it. And while I would change it if I could, I would change that lesson. I can't. And that's one of the things the fixed signs tend to do, is they tend to want to try to change something that can't be changed. And the past cannot be changed. Only the present and the choices we make that lead to the future. All right, here we go. On to our Sagittarius. This is our last sign of the day. Rising moon, sun, and stelliums. I'm kind of surprised. I wonder if that text was from Small Wildflowers. I usually hear from her. I'm a little nervous. Okay, here we go. Sagittarius. Your tarot card is the 10 of Wands. Now, this is really a card of burden. It's a card of, kind of doing things the hard way. This guy's got a big old basket, and he's only carrying one wand at a time. Let's see where we're going. Because I don't usually think of Sagittarius as a, burden. But if we think about the idea that your ruling planet right now is retrograde, in exaltation, but retrograde nonetheless, maybe you are revisiting burdens. I find that I lack focus lately, but I've given myself a get out of jail free card because of my transits. I really don't think I'm losing my mind. I just think I feel like I'm like, how mothers, when they have a newborn baby, feel like they don't talk to anybody that stimulates their mind, and they call it mommy brain. I think that happens when you spend too much time alone too. You get alone brain. Okay. Sagittarius, there's Yvonne, the angel of vulnerability. There's Celeste. There's the angel of new shifts and potentials, both in the mind and in the physical. We have Aurora, who's saying that you're flying high right now. And then finally, we have Azure. Well, this all looks very nice. Let's see. Oh, Sagittarius. I do think that Sagittarius gets a big, like everybody, the kind of the Jupiter energy, even more so than Venus. Jupiter just gets a real get out of jail free card. And honestly, Jupiter can be a little difficult. Actually, a lot difficult under the right circumstances. Okay, Yvonne is being joined by the Joy card. Oh, now isn't that funny? The tarot card is the Ten of Wands, burden, and then Spirit is saying, be vulnerable to joy. Celeste is being joined by the Goblin, upside down. That's very interesting. We have then the Protection card joining Aurora. And finally, Azure is being joined by the Perception card upside down. This would have something to do with how you're perceiving a situation. You might, we all Jupiterian ruled people have moons and have other aspects that can kind of dumb down the optimism of Jupiter, right? That kind of brings it into a place that feels more Saturnian, because that's exactly what it feels like right now to me. That you have had a feeling of potential optimism about something, and while you're not completely defeated about it, you definitely feel like you've got an ego bruise. And it could potentially be from a work situation where you've been working your ass off and, it's not quite being perceived as a mutual exchange of energy. But Aurora is saying you're flying high right now, that you'll set an example. And then there's the Protection card, which is also a 38, which reduces down to an 11. The Joy card is a 37, which reduces down to a 1. And we have the 10 here. So we see our series of ones going on, because Azure is saying that your perception is upside down, and that right now you might be feeling that things are very burdensome, or they have been harder than they have to be, but that feels like it's going to lift. And I want to offer this in my closing for Sagittarius. Sagittarius rising, you have 2 points that are very pivotal. The galactic center, you're anything within 1 to 3 degrees of that point, which is 27 degrees of Sagittarius, you have an extra ability to download information and solutions. So it could be your rising sign, but any planets that anyone has near that point, that's an advantage. There's also the great attractor at 14 degrees, right in the middle of Sagittarius. So it is beneficial to almost every rising sign, but the intensity diminishes as it gets further away from that degree. So here, I really think it's about being vulnerable to a bigger picture, that even sometimes other people might not understand your expansiveness, or you might get excited about something and then it's dampened, but don't let that burden keep you. That's so important to have a 15-degree Sagittarius rising, the 5 representing Mercury, the 1 representing the sun. This is really a liberation of how you stand in leadership over your mind, and then utilize your mind as the tool for manifestation, versus the mind running us amok with its various scenarios that are usually worry-based or fear-based. Okay, everybody, that's it. Be mindful. This week's Capricorn stellium will have things looking very much into history of our actions, Mars, the history of our sense of worth and money, Venus, the sun, our ego, how we express ourselves, and Mercury, our mind. And all the while, Jupiter will be squaring Chiron. The old versus the family traditions versus the individual pioneering spirit. And that's where we're all headed, is somewhere to understand that tension of what was old is really the platform to build something new. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching today. I'll be back. I think my energy is getting better. Look for some videos posted this week, and please check out the Pisces video, as it is time sensitive. And these next few weeks, while Neptune is at that anaretic degree, is really a time to take advantage of the energy and put some strong intentions into the universe for your own expansion and benefit. All right, everybody, love you so much. Peace out, and I'll see you next week.